Hey everybody, today we're going to practice breaking down text. In a prior tutorial, we talked about the importance of good design principles when we design our slides for a presentation. And one of the most important things is using what we call the 5 by 5 rule. This idea that we should try to limit our words to 5 words or less per bullet and 5 bullets or less per slide. Remember, there are always exceptions, and there are certainly times when we need to break the rules. But in general, it's a rule that we want to try and follow. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a paragraph of text and we are going to break that down into a 5 by 5 type of slide, and then we are going to design our slide in order to make it look nice. So we start off with a body of text here about Chicago Blackhawks. And certainly there is way too much text here to have on a slide. So I think what we want to do first is go through the slide. And we're going to try and find what the most important pieces of this slide are. And then we can start eliminating the things that are not necessary. Okay, so let's take a look at our first sentence. The Chicago Blackhawks are a professional ice hockey team based in Chicago, Illinois. And let's even back up. If we know that the entire slide is going to be about Chicago Blackhawks, a good title for this slide is probably going to be Chicago Blackhawks. So the Chicago Blackhawks are a professional ice hockey team based in Chicago, Illinois. Now, this all seems very important, but the things that we can probably get rid of are actually the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm just going to delete that because we already know that this slide is about Chicago Blackhawks, so there's no reason to repeat that in the bullet points of our slide. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Are a professional ice hockey team based in Chicago. I'm going to leave professional ice hockey team. We get rid of R and and we already know that they're in Chicago because they're the Chicago Blackhawks. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of based in Chicago, Illinois. They're members of the Central Division of the Western Conference of the National Hockey League. While some might think that all of that is important, what you want to remember is that a slide should kind of be like an outline that just guides your audience, and the presenter is filling in a lot of the details. We don't need to provide every single little detail to the audience on the slide. So let's do this for right now. They are members of the Central Division of the Western Conference. I'm going to get rid of they are, because remember, we're going to try and get rid of unnecessary words. And I don't know that this is central to this. Central Division of the Western Conference. I'm going to get rid of that. Member National Hockey League. I'm going to keep that for right now. Next, it says they have won 6 Stanley Cup championships since their founding in 1926. One of the things we want to eliminate is those unnecessary words. So this pronoun they, I'm going to get rid of. We don't need the word have. I'm going to get rid of that. And since they're founding, that could be one of those details that you would fill in as the presenter. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that also. The Blackhawks are one of the original 6 NHL teams, along with the Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens, Montreal Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, and New York Rangers. Well, again, we already know it's about the Blackhawks, so I'm going to get rid of that. Delete. Original 6 NHL team. I'm going to get rid of all these other teams because that's not really central to what we're talking about here, to mention all these other teams. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. Since 1994, the club's home rink is United Center. The date probably not super important here because we can add that as a detail while we're speaking. And why don't we just try home rink is United dead center. And we don't necessarily need the marker there or here. We cut down on our sentences. Okay, professional ice hockey team, member, we'll change this up. Hockey league. Get rid of the period because we are writing in phrases here, not in complete sentences, so we don't necessarily need a period there. We can also probably get rid of this. We could mention it in our presentation. Let's see, I'm down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're pretty close to our 5x5 here. Now, one of the things in regards to design principles, I like to be consistent with my formatting. So this is my preference, is to capitalize the first word of all of the bullet points. Additionally, if there are proper nouns, certainly you would also capitalize those. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we're going to turn this into bullet points. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my bullet points right here. And we get rid of that period that I don't need. Nope. What happened to my bullet points? There we go. Okay. So we have our bullet points there. And so the slide is pretty boring right now. So let's take a look at some things that we can do to make this look a little better. Remember, we want to keep our unity and we want to keep some consistency here. So I know that the Chicago Blackhawks colors are red, white, and black. So what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to go ahead and format. Actually, let's go to our slide and change the background. And we'll pick a color. I'm going to pick red. And click done. Now, what I like to do is preview my documents often like this, just so I can see what they look like when they're fully blown up. So I'm going to go ahead and go View, Present, and take a look at that. And that looks okay. I think the red and the black, though, could be maybe a little bit difficult on the eyes because they are both kind of darker colors. So I might play with that a little bit. So what I'm going to try, how about I'm going to select the body text and I'm going to change the text color. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to try white. It seems to pop out a little bit more. Let's take a look at it in the present mode. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Let me go ahead and go back and maybe change up my font a little bit. So right now we're using the same two fonts, or the same font in both places here. I'm going to go ahead and select my Blackhawks and maybe find something that's a little more interesting than Arial. And let's see, I like one called Candle. I don't see Candle right here. There we go. Perfect. And I'm going to come down here and we'll see if there are any other fonts. Now remember, we don't want the fonts to be too decorative or crazy. For example, if I do something like that, let's take a look at this. Not that it's terrible, but it is a little bit more distracting when you have to try and read that. So I'm going to try and stick away from those kind of fanciest looking fonts for things that are a little more simplistic, but maybe slightly more interesting than Arial. So let's try. And I think that one, I look at that one and it's a little bit too condensed. So again, I don't like that. And this is the problem, is you have to kind of check a couple different ones out until you find the one you think is going to best suit your purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and select, and let's try rubric. And that's okay. And one of the things I can do then, if I want to try and use up a little bit more of my page, I can come up here and I'm actually going to create some line spacing. Let's try 1.15. We'll try a little bit more. Go to 1.5. That seems a little better. And I'm going to shrink my text box a little bit, which will give me the ability to kind of move this around. And I'm going to go and find an image for our Chicago Blackhawks. So let's go ahead and go to Google. And I'm going to look for a Blackhawks logo. And I'm also going to look for a PNG. See what we can find down here. Let's check this guy out. Okay, so I have one here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. You might have to download it. We'll see if this will work the way we want it to. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and crop this a little bit just so I can get rid of some of the excess space. Like so. So, crop. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag this and make sure, and it still looks pretty good. Now, to make sure we don't distort the image, it's important that we kind of drag from the corners, because if we drag from the sides, we end up with distorted images. And so I'm going to kind of put him there. See if I can make him a little bit bigger without getting too close to my text. And remember, I want to keep some white space. And let's go ahead and take a look at this now. So view, present. And now I think we have a pretty good looking slide. I kept Chicago Blackhawks in black because it's a bolder font now. Because it's the only text in black, it tends to pop out a little bit more. The white, very easy to read, pops up against here. One thing I might do is maybe just move it down just a little bit more to create a little bit more balance. And then I'll take one last look at it here. You present. And there we go. So I think we have a pretty good looking slide at this point now. And so you guys are going to have some slides that you're going to practice on. But remember, get rid of the unnecessary words. Capitalize the first word of each bullet point. Try and keep those bullets to 5 or less per slide and 5 or less words per bullet whenever possible. And make sure we're looking for high quality images. All right, guys, good luck and thank you so much.